So I played a lot of Project Zomboid over the last week and a bit. I put in over 80 hours. Don't ask me how that was possible. There was a couple almost all-nighters on work nights. This is not a healthy routine. I feel like I'm addicted to gaming again. Project Zomboid definitely caught me off guard. I didn't anticipate being so addicted to a game that had so much dying in it. There is a learning curve here that definitely makes you go on a trip. If you are not familiar with the game Project Zomboid, it is a survival game where players navigate a post-apocalyptic world teeming with zombies, of course. It's set in a fictional quarantine Knox country. You learn this as you go. I've only ever started in Riverside so far, and I'll explain that as we go. But anyways, the game drops you in the midst of this zombie outbreak, and with a single inevitable objective: survive as long as possible. And trust me, it's varying degrees depending on how you start. In some cases, you start off with a really good hand of cards, and then you're just dealt some bad ones because of the location, just circumstances of a surprise attack, you fumbling on the controls, etc. And sometimes you start with a terrible start. No weapons, nothing. But you come out of it, and it makes you stronger. You learn something along the way. And so that's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about while the footage plays in the background. These are very early runs where I was still very green to the game and the controls. And like I said earlier on, there's a massive learning curve here. Once you get comfortable and confident that you've learned something and you've reached a milestone, it's just something else unlocks, some other problem, some other danger, and you discover you're back at ground zero. And I mean, sometimes below that. You're in worst case scenarios. For example, the first time the helicopter event happens, those of you who have played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you're new to the game, you have no idea this moment's going to happen. I was playing a trailer park guy at the time, and I was pretty comfortable in my own little kingdom. And then I heard the chopper, and I was like, is this bad? And then it's just it looked like a wave, literally a wave of zombies just trashed the entire trailer park. They were going through doors, through windows, like there was nowhere I could run. It's again one of those learning curves you have to go through, and you're gonna learn that early-ish in the game, and then you're just gonna move on. You're gonna get a new character, you know what happened. And here's the great thing with the game is that if you start on the same map, it is a continuous timeline on that map or that game session, I suppose. That save file, it's only for one active character at a time, but the map itself evolves. The way I've sort of looking at Project Zomboid is you're not really playing a character as much as you're playing the development, the outcomes of that city through the development of this. The general tropes of a zombie game come into play, securing food, building a fortress, crafting tools, fending off the relentless undead. And the game doesn't shy away from the grim reality of its setting. There are no cures, as I learned with a few runs that were pretty painful to lose these characters. We're talking over 15-hour runs. Sometimes I think one of them was over 30 hours maybe. So yeah, it's painful. And the first time I had to learn how the infection works was I thought I could save it, and I was desperate for this character to stay alive. And everything I tried, I just seemed to be getting worse and getting hotter. Even though I was running around the city naked at one point, I was like, why am I still hot? And then you get queasy, and those of you who have played the game, you know what I'm talking about. And so you learn. With this kind of open-ended gameplay, the player is completely free to explore and establish the bases however they please and interact with other survivors in the world that change with each playthrough. I mean, there's this multiplayer as well. I'm playing single player. You're interacting with the other characters you've played with after they're dead. Postmortem, right? So you get to inherit their bases, you get to inherit their collections, their stashes. I mean, as a player from a meta perspective, you learn what they learned. But here's the thing, on this map, in the continuity of this map's development, you are also technically a survivor for longer than the ones that preceded you on that map's gameplay, if that makes sense. So you have already survived the 2 weeks. You've survived the month and a half. You've survived to October. I'm somewhere at the end of November on the map I'm playing right now. It's just a cool way to approach the game. I did not think I'd like a game like this. The fact that you start a map that already has the markings of your other character as well. If you have a pencil or a pen or whatever, you can mark the maps. And the fact that you have that history that carries over, you as a player don't have to repeat the same things in those other areas. But at the same time, those areas have memories of things that you can go back for as a player that this character might not be aware of, but they get to stumble upon, and you can build that into the continuity of the narrative flow for the character story. And that's, I think, what I've really gotten into. These experiences become the character story along the way. And now the clips you're seeing are from 2 of the shortest runs that I've been on. And again, these were very early runs, and discovering the police station was a thing, right? It's just like everything did bring like a lesson with it. You can start the game without a can opener, and that is hell. You can start the game without a weapon, and that is hell. But you have to make do, kind of just go with the flow. But then, because I'm deviating again, I think what I was getting at is that every character has a story, and so when you can push past that, what I call the act 1 of that experience of your character, you got to survive the night, find the shelter, secure it, find your food, hopefully with a can opener. You make do, and if it's not in that house, then you got to go a little longer that night, and you got to find the next shelter, secure it, find the food, find the bed, sleep. And then you start your day as a survivor, and then you really start to develop, what's my approach, what's my attack strategy here. And that planning really goes a long way. The longer you play the map, the more memories you also bring with you from a meta perspective. And you can start making plans that go into the quote-unquote act 2 and potentially leading you into an act 3, which I'll talk about real quick, because I wanted to talk about just some takeaways after about 88 hours. But after I released the video on YouTube, so I think I made a comment, what did I say, 5 hours, 10 hours? I forget what I said, like to learn the game. No folks. I think I got to about hour 50 or 60, and then I learned, I think, my final lesson, like not my final, I'm sure there'll be more tied to crafting, which is the wall I'm kind of hitting now. The fact that the game really does not hold your hand. At one point, like I had to go to wikis to look up what am I missing? I'd be in really detrimental situations where I'm like, I am in the middle of an action and I cannot get this thing to do what intuitively I feel like it should be doing. And so I'd have to look it up. One of them was a bug, it was legitimate. The other one was just like pieces were missing in the puzzle. And because I didn't know these items existed in the game or whatever the case might be, right? So there's lessons like that I'm sure I'll still learn along the way, but I'll say I probably got to hour 40 to 50 before I felt like I had a confident handle on just how to approach the game, how to fight, how to maneuver. The mouse is kind of wonky in the way that aiming works. If you have a lapsed judgment, like for example, I'll look at where my mouse is supposed to be, but that's not where your character's facing in the isometric map. And it's very potentially taken me out of the game. And just because I've right-clicked in a different spot, you have to play the game to know what I'm talking about. And if you play the game, you know what I'm talking about. You just learned how to play the game differently so that kind of those little tripped up glitches don't happen as often. Or, anyways, I'm derailing again. What's engaging about this game is that it's the subtle aspects that mirror real life challenges and resilience, right? So like in the face of a relentless zombie outbreak where survival is the day's end goal, like you're not thinking about anything else. You got to find that shelter, you got to secure it, you got to find the food, you got to sleep at night, and then you start. The players learn the importance of adaptability because just like in life, unforeseen circumstances demand quick thinking and readiness to change plans. This has nailed me in the game, right? I've locked into something, I've gotten complacent, and then I learned what it was like for all the power to go off. I woke up in the morning and then I heard the boom, and you all know the sound I'm talking about. I had no idea. So the grid does die on that map, and then the water does run out on that map. All of these events really do add this value. I might have spoiled some of those moments, right? Kind of anticipate it in an apocalypse. These are gonna happen, but there's nothing like when they happen to you and you're in a moment of like maybe borderline just getting by. Like my first long run, I got complacent with cooking, for example. I wanted to cook all the food that was in the fridge, right? I figured like I got this food. I was grabbing it from all the homes around me. It was all frozen. It was all this healthy stuff. And then the power went out. And I was like, wait. I realized I had gotten too complacent. Another long run was I just started cleaning people's homes. I was like, what am I doing right now? I feel pretty secure in my little safe house. And at this point, I'm just going to tear down the furniture of all the homes around me. And I'm not going to leave this place a pigsty. I'm going to clean everything up. I'm going to bring everything back home. And then I think that was when the water ran out. It was one of those, like, again, one of those moments where I go, uh-oh. Like, I shouldn't have done that for the last week or something, right? But I had to change my plans, and I had to get another plan in motion for where do I go now for water. The houses around me still had water. But then it's like, well, let me try to look for some cooking pots, right? And then I'm gonna just go on a run with cooking pots to bring water back to my home after I built a barrel or something. These chain of reactions of thoughts, they weren't there before the problem, is what I'm saying. Like, I didn't pre-plan any of this because I didn't know what I was getting into as a blind player. But it really goes to show, like, even in life, right? You can't always anticipate when something's gonna go completely sideways on you. And the plans you had, you probably have to throw them out and reconfigure them. Just find a new way, find a new plan, So resource management in this game parallels else the real world skill of prioritizing needs over wants. Allocating limited supplies wisely, deciding when to save and when to expand mirrors budgeting and resource conservations in our lives. I mean, that one got a little bit too mature maybe an adult, but these moments come up in life where you just realize that things aren't that important. Memories are important, and memories are associated to things, sure. The value of money for creating the best life you can live is not always correlated with the things that you have stockpiled in a safe house. It's derailing. The game underscores the significance of learning and improvement is, I think, what I'm trying to get at. Each failure, each restart in the game is a chance to apply what was learned previously. And this is very much like how life's setbacks offer lessons for future endeavors. I'm not sure what the entire point of me trying to record something like this was, except that I miss old YouTube, where people just talked and things weren't always these heavy productions. It's just people could connect and just give their thoughts over some gameplay. I know there are channels that talk over video game footage for years now, but I feel like I'm going in that direction and maybe playing 80 plus hours of Project Zomboid after playing the 60 hours of Subnautica, these games that I was immersed in and just had time to think about the game experience, but also correlate that around this whole survivability and adaptability. I know that it seems weird to compare life to games about survival and resource management, but I think it's like extended to YouTube as a channel for expression and how I want to move forward. The platform has just required people to adapt and change. Things have changed. Audiences have changed. The platforms have changed. Goals of the platform has changed. The rules and the algorithms, of course, keep on changing because they're informed by the audience itself, which also keeps on changing. This is a cycle, and this may be a 3 to 5 year cycle, but it doesn't matter. What's assured is that things will change, and then you have to adapt and survive. I don't want to abandon anything. I feel like sometimes you gotta leave the safe house and you gotta go out there and search for a new way to move forward after events don't go the way you anticipate. I mean, this is kind of a rambling video, but I just got to thinking about this stuff because the game's open-ended nature with no predetermined end, it reflects life's unpredictability and the ideas that sometimes the journey and the experiences along the way hold more value than the destination. I keep saying that since I started the channel in 2016 and it's never changed. I kind of hit a wall with Project Zomboid where I'm going into crafting mode and I gotta tap out for a bit. I've recorded all the footage and I would like to tell stories for the characters in some creative way, and I'll see if it's possible, or maybe it doesn't happen, but I do feel like I've definitely told stories of these characters in my head. Got their Act 1s, Act 2s, and Act 3s, and even when they went with stellar fashion near the end. Like, there were some pretty epic moments narratively, so maybe I can turn that into content, and then otherwise I might just do more content like this where I'm just casually talking about things, and it's a reminder that in life the process is more enriching than the outcome, and I'll leave it at that. Cool? So don't forget to explore, engage, and inspire. Peace, everybody.